So it's super important to get pro bono legal representation as an NGO within Australia and also in whatever country you're going to be working in. This is difficult and it takes a long time, but it's super important because there's so much legal setup to do, and you're trying to get people who normally get paid a lot of money to do the exact same work for no money. So you've really got to be prepared in what you're presenting and what you can show you're going to be doing. The first place to go if you're looking for legal representation as an NGO would be a place that's now called Justice Connect. I'm going to put the link down the bottom. It used to be called Pilch when I worked with them. Pilch was the Public Interest Law Clearinghouse, and then Pilch New South Wales and Pilch Victoria merged together, and they're now called Justice Connect. Justice Connect is a legal hub of information for NGOs. You can email them, you can call them, they'll give you legal advice, you can set up meetings, they'll give you training in NGO legal setup. But their main aim is what they do is they partner NGOs that they accept with other legal firms. So firms that will contact them and say, we've got these portfolios open, room to take in more NGOs, what do you have to match up? So we got accepted to Pilch, New South Wales. It was a fairly long process. You got to submit significant documents, but they're documents that you should have already, or at least be working on already. And then we waited about 3 to 5 months, and they weren't able to partner us with anyone because at that time, 2 to 3 years ago, legal firms weren't doing that well financially, so they weren't taking on that many things to do for free. They keep all your information, they try and match you further on, and then what they do is they ask after 12 to 24 months if they can close your file. But Justice Connect is definitely the first place to go if you're going to want to try and find pro bono legal advice for an NGO. Why this is so confusing is because the legal setup in Australia is quite a long process. So things that we had to do as the Make a Change Foundation to be set up in Australia as an NGO, and we've still got multiple things left to do. You have to get your ABN, you have to get your ACN, you have to get your TFN, so your Australian business number, your company needs to be registered, and you need to get your tax file number. You also need to have your legal constitution, your certificate of registration, and your company needs to be incorporated, and you need to be registered with ASIC. So these were all things that I sort of assumed I would have to do, but had absolutely no idea how to do it at all. It's now all done. We're going through now the steps to get deductible gift recipiency. It's a whole nother video because it's a horrible, horrible process. The Make a Change Foundation is partnered up with an American firm who are new in Australia called K&L Gates. How we got this is a fluke, and it's just from talking to people. Pretty much been a pretty good representation of what the last 7 years have been for me, is just talking to people, talking to the right people, presenting a good idea, showing that you care about what you're doing and that you're serious about it. It's about, I mean, there's no point doing this if you're not going to do it properly. It's a waste of time. You're wasting your time and everyone else's time. So my best friend's godmother used to work, or still works for a firm called Spark Helmore, who then put me in contact with my now lawyer, who at the time when they accepted us, we had to submit the same documents. It took a couple of months, and then they transferred to K&L Gates. So then K&L Gates processed, and we did everything that we said we did before. Pretty similar story to our legal representation here in the Philippines. It's through a friend, my mum's friend's nun friend. It's a long connecting trail, but they're now doing the work for us here. And we're just about finished our DSWD endorsement, which is our endorsement from the Department of Social Welfare and Development here in the Philippines. All of that I have absolutely no idea how to do myself. I'm a history and literature major. I don't know anything about business except common sense stuff. And common sense shows that you're going to need to get people to do this stuff for free. They're so expensive if you need to get actual legal advice, so it's just not an option for NGOs. So the way that I would advise you to convince lawyers to work to you for free is basically the same as the last video. It's about knowing your home and what you're doing. It's about convincing people that what you're doing has a purpose, it has a need, and that you're serious about it. So one, know exactly what you're doing. Be able to say it in a couple of sentences. You need to have significant documentation to show what you're doing. You need to find out what documentation you're going to need in the country that you're working in and what that requires. For us, we needed a manual of operation, which is the most important document for child protective homes in the Philippines. We had and a handbook and our board of directors. Super important to have a board of directors. They don't have to be crazy fancy politicians, lawyers, doctors and stuff. All my board of directors in Australia are under the age of 30, I think, except the one, Dominic, who's the dad of my best friend. PhD student, social worker, businessman, motivational speaker, and myself. I'm literally the least qualified person on my board. I needed people on my board who would be able to tell me to shut up and listen to them, and that's exactly what I did. And on advice from our lawyers as well, you don't need to stack it with people of public importance. Just you need to have people who are able to get the job done and be able to get the work that you need done. And have a budget, understand what you're doing, what your aim is to doing. Budgeting for NGOs is really difficult because other than grants and things like that, which are also difficult to get, your whole budget is based off people giving you money for absolutely nothing except what you tell them they're going to do. And then the last bit of advice I can give is when you're meeting with lawyers, finally, relax, take your time. They're not going to be horrible. My first meeting, I was absolutely terrified. It was myself and 3 lawyers, and they sat down, they said, "What are you doing?" And I kind of had to then convince 3 people of the last 6 years of my life what I'd been doing and why it was important to me. Luckily it worked. I'm a lot more relaxed now in legal meetings because the first one was just absolutely traumatizing. And then the last thing would be just don't make it up. If you don't know, just tell them. It's very, very quickly obvious that I had no idea what I was doing in the legal setup. Yeah, so I think the next video I'm going to share will be about DGR status within Australia and how difficult that is. And then we're really close to finding the home for the Make a Change Foundation here in the Philippines, so hopefully there's a lot more fun videos coming up soon that actually show a house. Cool, so next time we'll talk about money and being able to get people to give you money for free. Thanks very much.